Legends of the Rift, Book 1, Kiao's Origin. Chapter 1, The Moorlands. My village was dying. We had nothing. The nearest kingdom we could ride to for supplies was more than a week's journey from here. With little to no food, dozens of sick and dying, and basically no shill, the currency of the realm in the form of jade coins, we were doomed. But not all of us were affected by the depression brought on by the famine and sickness. Some of us had hope, and in our small village that no longer had such a name to it. Hope was a godsend. I was 7 when I finally had my own brush with death. My parents had died from the sickness that plagued our home, and I was left alone. Hungry, pale, and scared, I hobbled down a dark alleyway that I knew was a shortcut to the town's bakery. I knew there wasn't much to eat, even there, but it was better than starving. Even tossed-out bread that was burned black from the ovens tasted better than I imagined. I rummaged through a small pile of discarded scraps behind the bakery and found 3 particularly good chunks of wheat bread. Some of it was charred, but compared to what I was already used to, these were a king's feast. I sat down, slumped against a heavy barrel filled with rainwater to start my dinner for the day, when I hear the all too familiar snickering to my left, toward the dark alley. Without looking up, I heard 3 sets of shoes hitting the muddy ground, making their way toward me. "Well, well, if it isn't the garbage rat," one voice chuckled. I quickly stood up and faced them, heart pounding and my eyes darting between the 3 of them. Damn it, why now? As if things weren't bad enough. "You gonna say something, or are you just gonna stand there like always?" The boy on the left was staring at me. His short brown hair was caked with dirt and grime, the telltale sign of a homeless kid. The middle kid had a nose that was all too crooked. You knew he got into fights with a nose like that. The right side was occupied by a fatter boy who had the dumbest look on his face, like he didn't care what he did or what he was ordered to do, as long as he got to hurt or break something. Together, the 3 of them blocked all access to the back alley where I came from. The middle grunt took a step forward, which in turn made me instinctively take a step back. "I'll just make this simple for you, rat. Drop the bread and get lost. Your skinny ass probably won't survive the time it takes to eat it all." He stuck a hand out to collect the meal, and I now noticed I was clutching to my chest. I took another step back, and the other kid's eyes flashed with rage. "Hey, I said give me the damn food!" I lifted my head up to look him square in the eye. If I wasn't starving to death, I would have taken them on, just like before, and the time before that, and so on. But I was tired. At first, these bullies were nothing but a nuisance, but now I was in trouble. I had no muscle mass, and even if I did, I hadn't had anything decent to eat in too long. Even the walk over here had wore me out. If I tried anything, these guys would kill me. The assumed leader of this little group grabbed me by my stained and tattered gray shirt. "If you don't drop it, we are gonna drop you." His voice was angry, but for a second I heard something different in it, something I knew all too well: desperation. On any other day, these kids would simply pick a fight to see who was stronger. This time, they had double the incentive, thanks to their hunger. The kid raised his bony fist and socked me in the face. Before I knew it, I had stumbled backward and fell, knocking over the rain barrel, which in turn spilled its contents into the street. But I wasn't worried about that. My hands were now empty, and with a flush of panic, I saw the leader scoop one of the chunks of bread off the ground. "Pathetic. You think you had a chance? Now get lost, rat." Before he could take a bite, something happened that would change the events of my life. Almost as if it was in slow motion, a rock entered my line of vision and smacked against the bully's skull. With a howl of pain, he turned around and yelled, "Ah! Which one of you jackasses threw that?" The other two grunts, who were standing patiently at the alleyway entrance, looked shocked and shook their heads. Neither of us, boss. We just stood here like you told us to. Ah! Another rock hit the round kid's head, making him cut his sentence short. The three of them looked down into the alleyway, and the look of confusion turned into anger again. Two more kids, about my age, stood in the alleyway, half covered in shadows from the setting sun. They stepped forward, and I saw their faces. A boy and a girl. The boy holding a small bundle of rocks in his hands, and the girl holding something like a broken broom handle. "Shame on you," the girl said, looking more disappointed than mad, like she thought they were better than this. "That boy got his food first, fair and square. Why don't you assholes leave him alone?" The boy next to her threw another rock and hit the leader once more in the face, making a scratch right down on his cheekbone. "Ah! That's it! You two, deal with them while I take care of the rat." The other two grunts ran towards the two who were defending me. Before I could see what was happening, the lead bully was in front of me as I stood up. He threw a punch, and I ducked, barely keeping balance. "Damn vermin! Just crawl into a hole and die!" he yelled at me, throwing another punch. I sidestepped, and his fist slammed into the wall of the bakery behind me. A slight crunch was heard, even from my ears, and he jerked his hand back, roaring with a mixture of pain and rage. Before I knew it, I tackled him into the ground, trying to pin him down. That was kind of a bad idea, to say the least. Like a feather, I was pushed off and practically thrown to the side. I guess for a second I forgot I was more or less skin and bone. After a second, the bully was on top of me, hand on my throat, and I couldn't breathe. I tried hitting his arms down, but to no effect. He was strangling me. Thrashing around as much as I could, his hands only gripped tighter on my neck, making my vision blurry. That was it. I'm gonna die, I thought. This is how it ends. The creeping darkness on the edges of my vision grew more obvious, and my thrashing was getting slower, gentler. Before the darkness consumed my vision, my ears picked up a distant echoing sound of a smack, like a whip was cracking in the air. Suddenly, the kid's hands let go, and he slumped to the ground on my right. Gasping and coughing violently, I sat up and gently held my throat, which felt like a vice was just tested on it. I looked over to the kid on my right, and he was on the ground, facing down. He wasn't moving. What had saved me? I thought. Then I noticed that there wasn't any sound, nothing but the wind. Looking to my left, I saw the other two bullies were also unconscious. One draped over a wooden box, and the other slumped against an alley wall. The boy and girl who were defending me now stood over me, but I saw now they had a few extra scratches and bruises. The girl was clutching her broom handle tightly, with a bit of blood covering the end of it. The boy was behind her, crouched down and panting like he just ran a marathon. The girl offered her hand. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking scared. "No, not scared. Worried." My throat was on fire, and that made it very hard to speak without having another coughing fit. The boy behind her stood up and walked over. "Gods, Jess, if you could have killed him." The girl, who I assumed was Jess, looked up at him. "Well, what else could I have done? He was killing him." The boy simply shook his head, rolling his eyes a little. "Well, not much we can do about it now." He looked at me. "Seriously, though, are you all right?" Without trying to speak again, I simply nodded my head. "What did those kids want?" Jess asked. "I'm guessing these." The boy stepped over the unconscious bully to my right and picked up the chunks of bread I almost died for. Famine's getting worse. If it's coming to this, I hate to think what would happen if we weren't here. I stood up, shakily, and reached for the food. Surprisingly, the boy didn't pull the bread away like I expected. Instead, he handed it all back to me. Next time you look for food, try to be more careful. He gave me a strange smirk as I took my food back. The girl, Jess, stood back up and lightly punched him in the shoulder. "It's not like he saw the ambush coming, dumbass," he told him. True, I guess," the boy shrugged. Jess turned toward me and was surprised to see me holding out one of the chunks of bread out to her. "Huh? What's this for? Isn't that yours?" she asked. I shook my head and placed it into her hand. Then I did the same for the boy next to her. "Oh, I get it. He's thanking us," the boy said, and I nodded in response. "I see," Jess replied. "Well, in that case, you're welcome." She smiled. "Here, let me introduce myself. I'm Jess Whitehall, and that's Drew Oren." They seemed all right. For some reason, I trusted them. "What's your name?" Jess asked, and with a strangled, gravelly voice I choked out, "Kiao. Kiao Strain." Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. That was chapter 1 of my story. I know I already kind of recorded this, but I decided to let that one go and kind of redo it again. I think I like this a little bit better, and it's going to be in this form for the rest of the story. Yeah, I hope you all liked it. My name is Kiao, and I'll see you guys later. Farewell.